everyone, Jane here. Thank you for watching my video today. Welcome if you're new and welcome back if you're a returning viewer. Today I am working in my handmade-ish, well it is handmade but it literally was just me cutting up some pieces of watercolour paper journal, and I'm going to start off today by using this tissue collage paper. Now sometimes starting a blank page can be a bit daunting, and which is why I often start by just getting some colour down. But another way of doing that sort of same thing is by popping down some collage tissue or collage paper. This way it helps to break up that background. It immediately gives you some interest and it gives you something to work on, a base to go by. And so I'm using this collage paper by Tim Holtz. It's called Archives, and they now come in the sheets rather than the rolls, which is, I think, really quite useful because you get so many more different pages. And this page I chose was sort of like just vintagey. It's like a bit of a ledger, I think, a bit of a timetable or something, and a ticket. And I just tore them and just laid them across my page. Now at this stage I did have an idea of what I was going to be using on top, because what I had been doing is sometimes if you don't feel very sort of artistic or crafty, but you want to do something but you don't really want to complete a project, what I often do is use that time to either stamp out and cut out images and colour them in ready to use, or I get my collage books and I start cutting out images from there and just pop them in a little box so that they're ready to go. And that's what I had been doing with the Maremi small art books. So they were the images that I had in mind. Now I didn't know which ones I was going to use, but I knew it was going to be something probably industrial and grungy-esque. So that's why I'm going with this background. Now this tape as well is a washi tape from from Aall and Create, I do believe. I'm not sure what it's called. It's quite an old one. As always, I will list the products used in the description box below. Then I wanted to add some watercolour. Now I have just used Liquitex matte medium on the top of this paper. I have not sealed this page with any gesso. I don't worry too much. Most of what I do is going to be in an art journal or a sketchbook. It's not being on display apart from to you. So I don't worry if it's going to be permanent. So I don't seal my pages. I don't particularly worry about how the things are going down very much, because for me it's all about experimentation and play. So I'm using the Qor Watercolors by Golden, and they are in this little bowerbird palette which I got at Christmas time. They are a tiny little well, so I don't often use it, I have to admit, because you need to sort of use quite a small brush in there, although I'm using a bigger brush in there today. And I'm going with some sort of rusty colours. So I think I went with quinacridone gold, probably burnt sienna, and something like a raw sienna or raw umber. I'm not sure which one it is. I could look at my swatch sheet, but then I'll have to stop and come back. So I am just adding in colour where I see fit. And the lovely thing about the Qor by Golden is they're very, very flowy colours. As soon as they hit the water, they really love to run, and it makes them a really interesting sort of paint to use. If you like to do something very, very controlled, they're possibly not all the sort of paint you want to use, but for the sorts of things I do, they're lovely. So once that had dried, I wanted to add some stenciling just to break that background up a bit now. And I wanted a bit of blue, but I didn't want it intense. So I'm using these two paints from Hobbycraft, and I decided to mix a sort of pasteled down blue shade with some white acrylic paint. And I'm going through a stencil. I do believe it's called Metal Alpha by Be Crafty. I'm not sure whether always the products I use are still available. I will have a look and see if this stencil is still available, and if it is, I will link it in the description box as well. I mean, any stencil that you have would be fine. It's just that I wanted to carry on with, because I had text and numbers in the background, I wanted to carry that through into the foreground. So I'm just using my sort of stipply stencil brush, making sure I haven't got too much paint on the brush, and then just stenciling through the stencil. Now these are the images that I cut out previously, and they are from 3 different Maremi small art books. Now the girl, I do believe, is from Industrial Fashionistas. The mushroom is from the Fungos book, and the little light bulb is from the Industrial Bits and Bobs book. So what I did was I just went through my different books, thought about things that might go together, that I might like to put on a page, and just cut them out so that I knew that when the inspiration struck, they would be there. And I think that's a really good sort of little tip for getting a bit more frictionless arting or crafting, is if you've got things ready done, it makes it so much easier. If I have to stop and then find a book and then find an image and then cut it out, it can sort of interrupt that flow of creativity. So of course my bulb could not be just floating in the air, so I'm using a grey Unipin pen here. I think it was a 0.6 or 0.5, one or the other, and I did draw a line under where she was stood with the mushroom, but I decided that wasn't strong enough. So I'm going in with the Derwent Inktense pencil, and I'm using charcoal grey. This is another great one. It's a little bit more subtle than using my Stabilo Aall black pencil, which can be a bit intense. This gives a subtler colour, but it still gives that shadow. So I'm just going around adding shadow sort of wherever I feel it is required. Sometimes I go around the whole of the images, and I think I do with that today. Sometimes I just will do one side to show that a shadow is being cast one particular side, but today I wasn't really worried about that. I was just trying to make her stand out a little bit more. Now, the core paints are watercolors. So when you are adding things on top of watercolors, you do have to be aware that you can get reactivation. Now, some watercolors are more reactive than others. The Kuretake Gansai Tambi paints, I find, don't reactivate hardly at all when I put mediums on top. This paint today did reactivate when I went over with my medium, but again, because it was just a sort of grungy-ish background, it didn't really matter, and I could make it blend into the page still. But that is something to be aware, that if you don't want things to reactivate, then you need to be aware of what you're using for your background colour. So if I'd have used acrylic paints and watered them down, then that wouldn't have reactivated, because once they dry, they are permanent. But it's just something that you do need to think about when you're adding your layers. Like I say, for me, it's never that much of an issue. And so now when I'm going around with my pencil and the, watering it out, I do have to be aware that I might start to move layers underneath, but that's not, it doesn't matter to me. I don't mind if it does that. In fact, sometimes it adds a little bit extra to the shadow. Then once this was all dry, I'd found myself a sentiment from, I do believe it was the Lemon Creation books. And I've got my white Copic Acrea pen because I wanted to add a few little highlights just to add a bit of extra light in. Now this is a stage you don't have to do. I do tend to do it. I like to lift things with a little bit of highlighting, but in this occasion it would have looked fine staying how it was, but it just would have had a darker sort of look to it. I just wanted to lift it a little bit. So if you have enjoyed this video, do please give it a thumbs up, and if you haven't already subscribed, it'd be lovely if you could do that as well. And until the next time, bye bye.